Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Thursday, February 9th, 2023. And our top story today, a decades-long push to see caregiving as an economic issue. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Kim and Mike Barnes from Parenting Aging Parents. Well, Kim, Mike, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So it's been 30 years since the Family Medical Leave Act, guys. I didn't even know this, but back in the 90s, it was signed into law by President Clinton, giving individuals who have some level of needing medical care to take a leave of absence from their employer. And I want to, you guys are so ingrained in the caregiving community, especially in your native Austin, Texas. I want to ask you just point blank, Kim, I'll start with you and then we can go to Mike. Do we need a caregiving leave act for all those caregivers out there?
I think that the Family Leave Act does allow people who have needing to care for an elderly parent. There are some stipulations in there that will allow them to use that. I think that it's something that a lot of people don't realize that it's available. It's I think was well known that it was created for people when they have children to be able to give them the mother time to be able to, when it was first created, the mother to have time to be able to recoup after having a baby. And I don't think a lot of people realize that it can also be used for people who are caring for elderly parents as well.
Mike, do people underestimate the economic impact of caregiving, and you and Kim are both experiencing this with your parents, but there is a significant, from what I can tell, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that there are a lot of caregivers out there, and if they are home and they're not getting compensated, they're not contributing to the economy in the traditional sense. So there must be an economic impact there.
Sure, it's tough on everybody. If you're working for a company, it's tough on the company a little bit, just like if you're calling in sick a lot of times. If you're working on your own, like Kim and I have our own business, and when I have to take off for a day, go up to the Dallas area to see my mom and dad, I'm not working for Kim. So and she's my boss and she gets upset at me. But what I'm saying is that it comes with the territory, and it's been like that forever, that if you're an employee somewhere, whether it's working for yourself or working for a company, when you're not able to work, then it hurts the company a little bit. But part of that, I think, is expected, because that's why companies give you the vacation time. That's why companies give you sick time, because it's part of life. And you just need to, I think you just need to communicate openly with the people that you're working for, whether it's your wife or whether it's another boss, and make sure that they understand what you're going through and what the situation is. Because if you communicate well, I think it all works out well when you're working together.
But certainly if you're taking unpaid family leave so that you can care for a person, that definitely impacts the employee, because you're not getting paid during that time. Right. It gives you the time to be able to help care for your elderly parent, but you're not going to get paid for that. And I think that it just creates, it's just a challenge, especially as I think that as people continue to age and get to live longer. And so that's going to continue to be even more of an issue, I think, because people are living longer. And so you have parents that might be getting into their late 80s, their 90s, while you're still in the workforce.
Well, guys, several weeks ago, I think maybe it was last week, they all run together at this point. I was talking to Ray McGrath, who is a caregiver for his mother. And he said that it's really difficult to find a caregiver today. I wonder if having a more formal caregiving policy, and yes, there is FMLA, I'm agreeing with you. And I was not aware of that. So you educated me along with probably the audience. But I wonder if having some level of policy would help with attracting more people to a field that it seems to be very needed, especially since we have an aging America. America is aging. A lot more people, a majority of people are on the back end of 50 than are on the front end.
That's right.
Right. The statistics are staggering as far as the number of baby boomers who are turning 65 every year or every day compared to the number of babies even being born. I think that it is similar to teachers or who are historically underpaid. I think professional caregivers are also in a profession that is typically not paid as well as some others. And so that therein lies the challenge of trying to attract and keep really good people, because the pay is not that great.
And people don't realize how tough of a job it is, whether you're caregiving just occasionally or if it's every day, 9 to 5, so to speak, where you're having to help someone that much. It's overwhelming, and it's tough whether you're a family member or you're just a caregiver helping out a family. It's so difficult, and that's why it's hard to find a good caregiver to really help out for every family.
Within your Facebook group, I have to think that, to your point, Mike, the stress, you probably hear a lot from people that they have a lot of stress. They have financial stress. They have the stress of taking care of their own family, and the stress of taking care of a loved one. Any suggestions for mitigating that stress? I mean, it just seems like it's so overwhelming for so many people.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is that when you enter this world, if you will, as the adult child, when you sort of find yourself here, if you will, a lot of people don't prepare for it. And when you do find yourself there, you realize, oh gosh, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be looking for, what the questions are that I'm supposed to ask. I don't even know that there are all these services and providers out there that can help me, because I've never had to do this before. So I'm not even sure what to Google. So I think that the more that we as a society, if you will, as we ourselves are getting a little bit older and seeing our parents get older, is what are the things that we can do to plan ahead and be thinking about conversations we can have, those kinds of things, so that hopefully when we get to this stage, it's not quite as stressful. It doesn't take the stress out of needing a caregiver tomorrow out of the equation, but it does hopefully help you have put some of those things into motion and have had those conversations. Well,
speaking of conversations and planning ahead, I think it all has to do with communication when you're planning ahead, because I think back to when Kim and I had babies back in the late 90s and 2000, that it's not like we waited until the last minute and said, wow, let's take a date. Who should we get for a babysitter? I have no idea. You start planning ahead. You talk to your neighbors, you talk to your friends, say, oh, wow, yeah, did you know that Julia up the street is a babysitter? Oh yeah, we can use her. And you start planning ahead, and you don't wait until the last minute. Excuse me, the last minute. It's the same thing here. Again, we've talked about it before, that so many people are not comfortable and kind of scared to talk about their aging parents and the problems that they go through. Be open about it. Don't be scared to be able to talk about it and talk to your friends, and you'd be amazed to find out that, oh my gosh, these neighbors know about this certain caregiving company. These neighbors know about another caregiving company. Oh, now I have some options. I don't need it today, but when I do, I have some options to be able to think about. And by communicating, I'm able to plan ahead a little bit more thoroughly.
And truly, that was the whole reason why the Facebook group was created, was the fact that we felt like nobody talks about this. Yeah. And if we don't talk about it, we can't help each other.
Yeah, really good point. And you guys brought up an interesting point about a caregiving plan. I want to cover that in our next segment. When we come back, we'll talk about a caregiving plan and what you need to know. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score, a credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Kim and Mike Barnes of Parenting Aging Parents. Well, Kim, Mike, thanks so much for staying with us this morning. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2.
You bet.
All right. So, and I want to point out, Mike, that my wife is my boss's. But in all seriousness, in all seriousness, you talked about, both of you talked about the importance of communication, but also that caregiving plan. And let's talk about that. What goes into this caregiving plan? Is it just finances, like power of attorney, or is there more that goes into it?
Well, there's so much.
Right. I think there's different pieces of it.
Mhm.
And they're all going to be very, very important. You know, when I think of a caregiving plan, a lot of times I think of the hands-on caregiving or the actual physical part of that. So we could start with that,
Yeah.
which is really having conversations with your parents ahead of time to figure out, if mom or dad, you're not going to be able to take care of yourself completely, what are we open to? What are the ideas? You know, is there one of the children, the adult children, who has the ability to, maybe they're already retired, and so they have the ability to be the one that can go check on them every day or a couple times a week or whatever it is. Is it that we're going to need to bring in full-time care, and can mom and dad, can you afford to bring in that full-time care if you need it? Is part of the caregiving plan going to incorporate part of moving to a retirement community? And I think so many of those things are going to be important conversations to have with your parents when they're, you know, very capable of being able to make those decisions and give their wishes, as well as having the caveat of what are you open to if some of those things don't play out in the same way that you might have thought. If that one sibling who is able to be retired, well, what if they have to go back to work and they're not able to care for you? Those kinds of things. So I think it's having to put in the plan and maybe the contingency plans a little bit as well, don't you think?
Yeah, and you can't, you hate to overplan because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
But talking to the siblings, if all of the siblings, and if there's only one or two, it makes it a little bit tougher and a little bit easier depending on how you want to look at it. But however many siblings there are, make sure that they all communicate not only amongst each other, but with their parents to figure out who's going to be able to do what. And if only one lives locally and the other 4 or 5 are gone, then that's going to be tough on that one. And make sure everyone realizes that, because we've talked to people in our group that say, my brothers and sisters don't realize what I do and what I sacrifice for mom and dad, because they're gone and they come in once a year and fly in and say, oh, looks like things are good, see you later, and they're gone. Make sure that you realize what your siblings are going through and what each of you can add to the equation and what you can use your strengths to help out, because that's the biggest thing. Again, it goes back to communication. Make sure you all have a good plan and you're all together knowing what each person should do.
And as part of that caregiving plan, you're going to want to think about the medical power of attorney, which is going to be the person that can help make those medical decisions in the case that your parents aren't able to. You know, does that make more sense for the person who's local potentially? And or is there one sibling or one child that's a little more empathetic, or, you know, that will be the one that will follow their wishes? Yeah. That's also something that we hear a lot about, because if you have, you know, if mom and dad have a DNR and you have one of the adult children who says, I just can't, I couldn't go along with that. I wouldn't be able to. Well, then maybe that's not the person that should be the medical power of attorney. And then of course, the financial or the durable power of attorney is going to also be so important. And that's going to be part of your caregiving plan too. Yeah. For who's going to step in and be able to make decisions financially if that's going to be needed.
Guys, where does long-term care insurance fit into all this, or does it fit into this? I mean, it's getting more and more expensive vis-a-vis the cost of care. So naturally back in the 90s, they said, oh yeah, the premium aren't going to change. But here we are, like, there are many people in the back nine.
Yeah.
So those costs have gone up. But where does
Mhm.
long-term care insurance fit into the conversation?
I think one of the biggest things is people have to realize that just because you have insurance doesn't mean it's going to take care of all the problems. Because I think some people, whether it's medical or life insurance or long-term care insurance, anything, people think, oh, if I get this insurance, I'm set, don't have to worry about a thing. But if you do have long-term care insurance, yes, you are helped in some ways, but you're limited in others. So you just need to make sure you talk to an expert, figure out exactly what they can offer, what you need, and make sure that it all goes together to meet your needs.
Just all part of your whole financial plan for how are you going to pay for your long-term care, whether it's through long-term care insurance, whether it's through some other means as well.
Yeah.
So when do you start this conversation? I mean, is it too late to start when someone hits 70, or do you have to think about it when you become 50 years old, for example? Like, do I need to have that? I don't have any kids, but do I need to have that conversation with my spouse and say, honey, I mean, she's already the boss. We've already established that.
Yes.
But do I need to have that, in all seriousness, do I need to have that conversation? When would be optimal for planning that?
Well, I think first, it's never too late or too early.
It's
I
never
think
too
would be
early,
the,
definitely.
yeah, and definitely not.
It
never
can
too
be a
late.
little bit too
Well,
late.
that's true. If
Yes.
you have dementia involved or things like that, your window may have closed.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the ability to have that. But I think that starting the conversation as early as possible, because I think that it's at that stage, it can be a little more kind of hypothetical and a little less heavy when it's sort of, if we're having conversations with our kids who are in their 20s, they're not worried that much about something happening tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah.
But they at least have some ideas. But I think the biggest challenge with as adult children is that because there aren't developmental expectations of how people age, like there are when kids are born, or when you have a 2-year-old, that basically 2-year-olds do about the same things, 5-year-olds do basically about the same things. The biggest challenge that we see within our group is the fact that there's no formula for a 50-year-old being this way, a 60-year-old, a 70-year-old, an 80-year-old, 90-year-old.
They're all different.
Yeah, we have 61-year-olds parents that people in the group who have parents who are in their 60s that are having significant health challenges. And then we have, people in the group who have parents in their 90s who are, one whose dad fell and broke a rib because he was out dancing, so in his 90s. So, you have that I think is the hard part, is that there's not a magic number that, oh, when I turn 45, I need to make sure I've had these conversations with my parents.
Yeah.
I think it's when do you have the ability to, just kind of, again, have it in a little, not ingest isn't the right way or the right way to put it, but just when it doesn't have to be so serious.
But it's never too early, because
Right.
for 30 years, I've had my dad's power of attorney in the safe in the closet. So I've never had to look at it, never needed it, but I know it's there, which has helped. And I know that he's felt better because he's known that, okay, my sister has a copy, I have a copy. If you need it, you have it. We haven't needed it, but we know it's there just in case. But by the same token, as they get older, and as they're in their 80s now, as they're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen now? For 20 years, they bought the place where they're going to be buried in a proverbial mausoleum. And it's the same place where Mickey Mantle is buried. And they joke because they're in the penthouse, because they're on the top floor and Mickey's not. It's been a joke in the family for 20 years. But now, as we've gotten closer, they're both in their 80s. My mom's Alzheimer's is getting worse and worse and worse. And we're starting to talk to Dad about, when it's time for a funeral, for a memorial service, what do you think you're going to want? What do you think Mom would want? As far as, Bible verses, songs, and that type of thing. And that's a hard thing to talk about 20 years ago when we're not even close, but we're able to kind of joke about, buried where Mickey's going to be. And now it's a little bit heavier, but it's not out of the blue. It's like, okay, Dad, where are you going to be buried? What are we going to say at your funeral? It doesn't come out of nowhere, because we've kind of laid the groundwork to make it to where it's not a gigantic, what are we doing? Oh my gosh. And the crisis isn't going to be nearly as big because of that.
Yeah. And you're right, that it all comes down to communication. And if you communicate regularly and openly, seems like you're going to be in a better spot. Kim, Mike, we're going to have to leave it there. Always a pleasure chatting with you guys. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad we established that our wives, our bosses. Have a
Yes.
great rest of the day. We look forward to having you back.
Thank
on the
you.
Thanks
program
for
again
having
very
us.
soon. And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place. That's right, one place. Check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Post. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Well, visit our website and, of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired, come on.
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.